Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 197th Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. Today, our panel will discuss the possibility of our entering into yet another war. Specifically, our panel will address the inevitable questions that war often generates on social welfare. Our panel this morning, does anybody else see that thing? Okay, I had a screen interruption there. Today, our panel includes Dr. Ronald Chamberlin, retired senior research chemist, Joe Gaines, former faculty member at the University of Akron and Wadsworth High School, Patty Haskins, former member of the Wadsworth City Council and faculty member of Wadsworth High, and Bryan, president of R&D Financial Services. Ron, it's been said that the United States, if the United States implements and enforces a no-fly zone over the Ukraine, it will be considered an act of war with Russia. Do you think it is possible for the United States to engage in another war and avoid the accusations of social injustice that have accompanied other wars?
John, it's an interesting way to pose that, I think. I assume you mean the idea that modern warfare very happily goes about killing civilians and non-combatants. Just this morning, there was a report in the paper that the Russians bombed a maternity hospital in Mariupol, killed some, injured quite a number of people and tore the building. I heard a commentator, a retired general, talking the other night on a news program about the Russians' army and air force are relatively poorly trained, and they don't have the precision weapons that some of our do. They're using dumb bombs. So they're dropping a 500-pound bomb, hoping to perhaps hit a military target, but hitting wherever. So there's all that. But what do you call it? Social injustice? John, from my point of view, all war is social injustice. Nobody's safe from this. There was a saying back in the hippie days of the Vietnam era that war is unhealthy for children and other living things. And as I've mentioned to you folks, in contemporary parlance, I came out as a pacifist during the Vietnam War. I had those tendencies. I pretty much stayed out of the military by student deferments and keeping the grades up and then getting married in graduate school. So I think I probably had those thoughts, but that crystallized it for me. I joined a church denomination, which is a traditional peace group. My pacifism is complex. Certainly, personally, I will not do anything to wage war or defend myself against an aggressor in a violent way. I have that commitment. I don't know if I'll follow it up if it happens, but that's my commitment. I recognize the need for nations to perhaps be more warlike in defending what they have. I don't believe there's any such thing as a just war. So social injustice, I think, is an apt term. It's always socially unjust to wage war, whether it's a combatant or a non-combatant. That's my opinion on it. And certainly, I agree that an act of war, if we start shooting down Russian airplanes, or even to some extent supplying the ammunition to the Ukraine to shoot down Russian airplanes, this is going to be tantamount to war. And I don't think the mood in the country in general is ready for that. After Vietnam and Afghanistan, particularly Afghanistan most recently. We got out of that in a calamitous and precipitous way, but it certainly needed to be gotten out of.
Yeah.
So I think it's a tough.
I was thinking about more than anything else is the accusations that minorities carry a disproportionate burden when we are involved in wars. The number of Black combatants in Vietnam and I suppose Korea, but we didn't hear too much about race back then.
That was one of my thoughts of your interpretation of your comment. However, it's a volunteer army, And that's been a way for advancement for people of color, particularly blacks. If we're in a war, what makes you think it's going to stay a volunteer army?
Well, that's a very good question. Then if the draft comes back, will women be required to register?
Yeah, yeah,
That's,
and it's likely in that place it will become a little more widespread in the population, a little more racially equitable.
Well,
So-
Patty, what are your thoughts?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
I have a lot of thoughts about this. I think one of the big concerns is the threat of a nuclear war. Russia has stated.
Let me just ask you this question. Is anything more just and equal than a nuke? It seems like everybody gets treated alike in a nuclear.
Well, they all lose. I mean,
Yes.
that's, I guess if you're saying they're treated fairly, yes, it could mean the end of civilization if we
Yeah.
were to get to a nuclear war.
Kill
And
them
you know,
all
the
and let
thought,
God sort them out, huh?
you know, the thought is that everyone understands that. However, when you have a despot like Putin at the controls of nuclear weapons, you have to be concerned about his reaction. I know that he has stated that certain things that if we were to do them, like the no-fly zone and so forth, that would be considered an act of war. And who's to say that Putin would not use nuclear weapons for that purpose? I know the Pentagon has presently said definitely there will be no loaning of military jets to Poland so that they can supply jets to Ukraine. And I think the United States is treading a fine line in trying to prevent the all-out involvement of the United States with Russia in a war because of the dangers that it could lead to. Now, of course, we are a member of the UN. I think Biden has done an excellent job of uniting the members of the UN in support of Ukraine. But the United States is obligated by Article 5 that if Putin decides to move on into Poland or into other countries that are UN members, that the United States would end up becoming involved. The interesting thing, and one of the reasons I show concern, though, for the use of nuclear is that Putin's army has really shown itself to be quite ineffective. They are not organized. They are not state-of-the-art and well-operated military. They are presently bombing, as Ron had mentioned, hospitals, schools, civilian populations, because they don't understand how to conduct a strategic war. They have that 40-mile long convoy of tanks and equipment that's been stalled outside of Kiev for, what is it, a week now. They're just sitting there and they can't move because their generals are in disorder. Putin may be just crazy enough to think, well, if that's not going to work, I'll try something more severe. My whole concern with this entire situation is that we are dealing, and let's be truthful about this. I've heard so much commentary about this entire situation is Biden's fault, or that it is Trump's fault, and that each are the ones that are leading to this. And if we only had the Keystone Pipeline, this wouldn't occur. That has nothing to do with it. That's taking this catastrophe and turning it into political points on both sides, and they're both doing this. The problem here is that we have a madman that has decided that he wants more power. Putin has stated that the greatest tragedy in the 21st and 20th century has been the loss or the breakup of the Soviet Union. And he wants to bring back that power by any means possible. He's not worried about oil. He's not worried about human life. He's not worried about the economy of Russia. All he worries about is his power, and he feels that he can gain that by chopping off and chopping up another country for his own means. To me, very honestly, the only solution to this is if the people of Russia rise up against Putin to prevent this from continuing. In 1980, Russia invaded Afghanistan and stayed there for 2 years? And they just finally had to give up and back out. Ukraine doesn't have 2 years to wait for Putin to pull out. Unfortunately, he has been strong arming the people of Russia to prevent dissent. He has also had a huge campaign of disinformation about what's going on in Ukraine. For example, they're not even allowed to say that it is a war. They're saying it is I forget what it is, a special operation or something of that sort.
Operation.
Yes. And that's all that they're allowed to call it. He has declared everything that's happening is a lie. He has shut down all news sources, independent news sources, to get information out. But the people are still hearing it. A lot of the reason is because they have phones and they get information. And hopefully the Russian citizens will be able to see that they have a leader who doesn't care about the world, that doesn't care about them, and doesn't care about their economy and all the sanctions that have placed upon Russia, that he is only interested in power. And they're going to have to play a great part, I think, in ending this conflict.
Yes. Joe, what are your thoughts?
Well, I totally agree with Patty, but the thing is, when you say to Putin, people want to go against him, just, don't agree with him, what are they going to do? I mean, he was in charge of the KGB. He knows how to control people. He knows where to put them. He knows how to get rid of them, and how to, stop protesting, and he will. I worry about him. He's my biggest concern about this whole conflict is him. I don't know if he can be trusted. I mean, not trusted in a good way, but can we figure out what he's going to do next? Can we figure out his next step? I don't think we can. I'm against the war completely. I don't think it'll solve anything if we do go to war. Russia's going to be Russia, and Putin's going to be Putin. There's a few things I do want to say, though. I don't think a no-fly zone is going to work. First off, it could cause a war in Europe. Second, in many cases, it won't work because, I don't know how our people here in the United States are really kind of reluctant to get involved. Let me rephrase that. We're not reluctant. We want to get involved, but we're not getting involved in what we think we're getting involved in. We look at it as like, something we can control, something we can defeat. I don't know. I worry about that.
I'm going to be 83 years old this year. I think that all but 10 years of my life, the United States has been involved in war. And before that, just so much bloodshed of young people. 600,000 young men died in the Civil War. I don't know how in the world you justify that, but Bryan, pardon me for interrupting here, but let me know what your thoughts are.
Well, I think individuals like Putin have been sort of coddled over the years. I agree with Patty. Republicans and Democrats have tried the reset button with him, tried to appease him, to basically give him the room to do what he wants to do. He's been the president, sort of the duly elected president over 20 years. He gets 95% of the vote. I would question the fairness of that election. I would think that there probably is some ballot stuffing. Maybe, I don't think they're using Dominion machines, but when you get 95% of the vote, I kind of wonder about that. I'm not sure if McDonald's shutting down their restaurants is going to really affect Mr. Putin's idea that he'll do what he has to do to get the Ukrainian people to cave. And I think that doing a no-fly zone at this stage of the game, we're just spitting in the wind. We have allowed him to get away with actions over many years. And he took the Crimea without any, blip. He took Georgia. He's expanded. Patty's right. His vision is to return the Russia to the USSR, to get all these other satellite countries that spun off, Poland, the Ukraine being one of them. Sadly, the only thing that men like this respond to is a show of force of some way, shape, or form. We should have been arming the Ukrainians to the teeth up to this point in time. We've been, sadly, and I hate to admit this, we as a country are so feckless when it comes to supporting our allies. When the Ukraine asked for missiles and anti-tank weapons and all that kind of stuff, it was a fits and start thing. Okay, we'll give you this, but we won't give you that. We'll give that. We created sort of this mess over there because we weren't on the ground with them. And they realized what they needed. We stood by, and we always wait for the first guy to take the punch. And then we think we're going to be able to overcome that punch. And right now we find ourselves in a very precarious position with Russia and China as well. It's disturbing to note that Mr. Putin had a nice little visit with Xi Jinping over there in China. And China is basically helping them keep their economy running. Apple shut them down, Google shut them down. It's great that people are putting flags and running hashtags. That doesn't, that's not going to dissuade Mr. Putin from anything. He's laughing at us. He's going to keep his people there. They're going to do whatever they can to crush that government, whether we like it or not. 2 million people have already left the country. That's a humanitarian crisis. And we never seem to get ahead of these guys when it comes to their way of thinking. We always think that it's going to turn out good. We're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And they take advantage of us. And that's what's so sad about this. Mr. Putin loves pacifists. He loves that because these bad actors, they take advantage of that. And Ron, I'm right there behind you. I support your right to be a pacifist, but we'd all be speaking German right now if we all just laid down and said, you know what, we just can't fight. There are certain things we're willing to fight for, both Democrat and Republican. Now, whether or not it's the cast the pale of a Vietnam or Korea or anything like that, but I would take exception that the Civil War, how terrible it was a war that was justified to keep the Union together. And we can go through all the history of stuff and all that kind of stuff, but there are certain things that you're willing to fight for. And when I see images of hospitals getting bombed, that just infuriates me. And it makes me upset that we haven't done something way in the past to mitigate this. We always sit here and go, well, what could we have done? I think we could have done a lot to help the Ukrainian people, to put up a defense that Russia didn't feel emboldened to just walk in there. And that's what they're doing. They're just walking right in there. Tanks, their logistics, they're run out of gas.
Bryan, you mentioned a few minutes ago that we have allowed Russia to get away with these things. Why is it the United States' responsibility to keep Russia from invading Ukraine or China going into Taiwan? What makes it the US responsibility to be the world policeman? Because we can?
No, it's because we have to.
Oh,
We have to. Because if we allow these people to spread their cancer to other countries, we're going to be in a corner and we're going to be fighting for our very lives. Okay. We have always
right.
we've always supported countries and done our best. And we can argue the dirty wars and the covert wars and all that kind of stuff. But the fact is if we let Mr. Putin take over the Ukraine, Poland is next. And Poland is a NATO country. So it's a matter of time that we will be involved. I'm not saying we go in there and start, throwing some cruise missiles at them or something like that. But we should have done something to the bully on the block years ago.
do you think?
Bryan, and this same general that I heard quoting, pointed out quite strongly how we missed the boat in not putting a very strong defensive force into Ukraine. Both we being NATO.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I think we go back in history too, and we look at, from World War II, what we as a country and what other NATO, which they weren't NATO then, other NATO powers, allowed Hitler to invade Poland, allowed the taking of the Sudetenland. You look at Chamberlain's concessions to Germany. They allowed it to happen from the beginning. And look where we ended, to a point where we did have to fight. Otherwise, as you said, Bryan, we would all be speaking German. The problem though is we are where we are now. So what do we do now? Looking back, a lot of things we should have done. But again, I am grateful for the fact that we do have NATO and that all of the NATO nations seem to be standing strong. And also, I think we need to thank the gods in heaven that we have a leader in Ukraine like Zelensky. I never expected this from this guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you saw his speech in Parliament yesterday or the day before, and the resounding response that he got, this guy is what Ukraine needed at this time and should be our standard for how to lead a country in times of peril.
Yeah.
Russia's trying to kill him anyway. They infected him with dioxin. Remember that?
They tried.
Well, they've had three hit squads that have gone after him. I believe Russia's been hiding Chechen assassins to come in and attack him. And he's come right out and said, hey, listen, this is where I am. Try and come and get me. I'm staying and I'm going to support my people.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have to really look at the Ukraine and be impressed with what they've done, to keep on surviving. They're defending themselves quite well. In fact, I think it's changed Russia's ideas and their thoughts about how to attack the Ukraine. I don't think they thought that it would get this much negative fighting as they did from the Ukrainians.
I'm wondering what would happen if we
I'm
decided to not go in the direction of military assistance to the Ukraine. But don't we have the capability of launching an all-out information war and let the Russian people know what's going on?
Well,
Patty
they're trying to do that, but unfortunately, a lot of that information has been blocked. It's coming by phone.
I mean, can't we unblock it?
Yeah, but what you're saying is that you're saying that the Russian people would be upset and they would do something about it. They might not be able to.
They've already arrested 14,000 people from
easily
in Russia.
Yeah.
But that's a lot. And I find it interesting too that, and it's almost humorous, is the way that women have arisen in this situation. Ukrainian women, the grandmothers that have gone out and challenged the Russian soldiers. I saw a report where supposedly a grandmother had downed a Russian drone with a jar of pickles. Now she came out and she wanted to straighten things out. It wasn't pickles. it was pickled tomatoes that she threw this jar at a drone.
That's one tough grandma.
Oh my goodness. You know, the Russian grandmothers that are approaching the soldiers, the one that went up and gave him, I believe, sunflower seeds so that when he died, his body would at least produce something
Yeah.
nice. This
Uh-oh.
is
Well,
horrible.
there's been sort of a dust up in Ukraine with the trans community. I don't know if you saw this one. Ukraine is saying anybody at this, I think it's 18 or older or 17 or older, and you're an able-bodied man, you're staying. We're going to issue you a rifle.
Right, they've
You
said that
are
they've
you
done
are
that.
going to fight this battle. The trans community over there is arguing with them that they're actually women, and Ukraine saying, no, you're not. You're a man.
Oh,
Pick up a rifle and fight. Grandma's throwing, canned pickled tomatoes at drones. You pick up a gun. You're gonna defend the country. This notion that somehow, CBS News had this thing, how the trans people have found it so hard to get recognized. These people are fighting for their lives, and and they're sitting over there arguing about whether or not a man is a woman. Pick up a gun.
A
Protect
lot
your
of the
country.
women who have gotten their
And-
children to safety
And women
are
are staying.
are
They're staying.
coming back so
Yes.
that they can fight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
The only
yeah.
thing that prevents them from fighting in some cases is they don't have guns and ammunition.
Right.
But see,
So
they
they use
know
their
what it's like to live
pickles.
in the Soviet Union too.
And they
when
don't
it
want
was
to
the
go
Soviet
back.
Union. No, they don't.
They don't
At
want to
all.
go back. They
Can't
don't
blame
want to.
them.
They want to stay in their country. We should have armed those people to the teeth over the
Agreed.
last 10 years. We should have given them every system that we have and given the training on that. We should have provided that. But as feckless as we are, we stopped. We did this. We didn't do that. We were afraid that we were going to upset Russia. Russia doesn't care.
We're just
Putin
about.
doesn't care.
We're about out of time, and I didn't.
Sorry.
I didn't expect this discussion to go in the direction of social justice for the Ukrainian trans community. But
I wanted to throw that in there.
I appreciate that. Thank you
Good
very
point.
much, folks.
Thank you.
That'll do it.
Thank you.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.